Hey film buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. I've been wanting to talk about Knives Out for a while now. I figured I'd have to wait till the sequel to do it, but Death on the Nile came out and I just went and watched it. So I figured I could kill two birds with one stone by reviewing Death on the Nile and talking about Knives Out at the same time by comparing the two. Now granted, they both have their own issues to overcome, one being an adaptation of a book from the 1930s and trying to be a period piece, and the other one trying to modernize the whodunit, so it's a little like apples and oranges, but I think they're close enough to get those comparisons. As you can tell by the title of the video, I like Knives Out better, and that's kind of what this video is going to be, is me talking about why I liked it better. So, I know you guys got places to be, so let's get right into it. The three things that I think Knives Out does better than Death on the Nile is the pacing, the characters, and kind of the dialogue and the mystery of the movie as a whole. As far as pacing goes, when you start in Knives Out, boom, there's the dead guy. Here are the suspects. Now, let's figure out the mystery as we go on. The whole movie is the mystery. Death on the Nile, on the other hand, it takes an hour to get to the Death on the Nile. So, when it takes you an hour to get to the murder aspect of the murder mystery, the first half of the movie better be pretty exciting. And to me, it wasn't. It seemed to drag in some points. They spend a lot of time establishing the motive for each character, where Knives Out did it in an interview scene, intercut with another interview scene, intercut with another interview scene. You never got lost in Knives Out, where in Death on the Nile, you got the motive before there was ever a murder to every single character, no matter how small. And it was always just a drawn-out explanation, where this is the granddaughter of so-and-so did this to this person, and that's why they hate the victim. Even though we haven't even gotten a victim yet. You know everybody's motive before you ever even get a victim, and real life doesn't really work that way. I know when you're adapting a book, you have to lay out the motives throughout the book, but I feel like they could have done it in a better way, kind of like Knives Out did, where you got the motives in that first scene, and then the rest of the movie is solving who done it. And that's another thing with the characterization of these people in the movie. Both movies have a very well-known cast. You know pretty much everybody who's in both movies. But Knives Out characters as a whole act more like people actually act. They act like greedy rich people who are just after their father or grandfather's money, and their motives seem a little bit more plausible than the characters in Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile, to me, really seemed to sacrifice substance for style. It was beautifully shot. I think Kenneth Branagh did a great job in directing. They really deserve an ovation for that. But there are scenes where the characters are standing in these awkward positions just to get a cool establishing shot. I don't believe that that's necessary. I think Knives Out looked stylistically stunning. I really like the cinematography in that as well, but the characters weren't in these awkward positions to get cool establishing shots. And a lot of the time, the dialogue of Death on the Nile sounded like it was an artificial intelligence trying to write how people talk. Now, again, granted, that could be because they're adapting a book from the 1930s, and that's how people in the 1930s actually talked. I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 1930s. I've never actually read Death on the Nile, so I don't want to knock it too bad for that, but there were some scenes where people were saying things that I can't imagine myself hearing people in the real world saying. So it's kind of a weird disposition of trying to be clever, but really talking in a way that people don't actually talk. I never really felt that way when watching Knives Out. And as far as the mystery goes, having Knives Out being told mostly from the perspective of Marta is something that you don't really see in detective stories too much. I grew up watching Monk and Psych and Law and Order and CSI, and it's told mainly from the people solving the crimes kind of perspective, where being told through Marta, we know information that the other characters don't know because we can see through Marta's eyes, but we don't know everything because Marta doesn't know everything, and she's not this genius intellectual like Perot or Blanc. We're seeing it through her eyes as an audience surrogate, and that's a really cool way to kind of show, hey, this is what you would really see if you were the person in this story. So I think that's really good for Knives Out to do something different that we really haven't seen before, where Death on the Nile is something that we kind of have seen. We've seen it in the first movie in the Orient Express, where we've already seen through Poirot's point of view. To me, it just felt a little boring because it's something that we've kind of seen before. There are some logical issues with Death on the Nile, with some of the motives and the gunshots being heard at one point and not another point. I don't really want to get into too many spoilers. Just things like that, where something like in the real world, a silk scarf really isn't going to muffle the sound of a gun too well. Or something like Gal Gadot not feeling safe around these people, but being talked into getting on a boat where there's no escape with all the people you don't feel safe around. Just logical kind of inconsistencies like that kind of take you out of the movie a little bit. And both films kind of do the loud plot points being told in front of everyone that is important to the murder case. But Knives Out does it under the guise of families arguing, where in Death on the Nile, it's just a lawyer walking up and saying something important that only two people are supposed to hear, but he says it in front of everybody. It doesn't really kind of cover why some of the information is being shared, and a lot of the clues in Death on the Nile are very overtly stated. There was one in particular that I'm thinking of that I was like, oh, that's important later, and it really kind of ruined the ending for me, or I figured it out, it didn't ruin the ending, but as soon as they exclaim this one thing, you know where it's going to be used later in the film. It's kind of like watching an episode of Murderville. The clues are being told to you specifically instead of kind of being sprinkled throughout where you have to pick it up. And one thing that Death on the Nile did that I didn't think that Knives Out did as much is, since there was so much space to fill in the beginning of the movie, they really threw kind of weird instances in that didn't really need to be in the movie, like the origin of Poirot's mustache, and kind of the weird Dark Knight Two-Face reveal with why he has a mustache. Didn't really think that was necessary. I guess the whole theme overall was love, and it was trying to establish that, and the kite scene on the pyramids I didn't really think was necessary. I guess trying to show the childish nature of book. Overall, I think Knives Out being more tightly cut really eliminated a lot of that filler fat that I don't like in movies. I like when we kind of get to the action right off the bat. Now, I know that I complained in Uncharted where they cut too quickly. Knives Out has that good balance where you're seeing the clues that you're supposed to be seeing. They're not overtly saying them, and you can get through the film, kind of figure out what's going on, but still need it described to you at the end a little bit. Death on the Nile just was a little bit too overt with its clues. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below. Did you like Death on the Nile better than Knives Out? Whatever your opinion is, let me know, and I'd love to talk about it with you in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.